I'm using processing to remove the noise, but I'm also using EQ and compression to balance out the frequencies and make a more consistent dynamic sound. I'll start with the raw audio and then I'll engage the plugins.
The biggest challenge I have with my audio or direction right now is confidence that my deliverable is world-class. The biggest challenge I have with my audio or direction right now is confidence that my deliverable is world-class.
I am going to walk you through the whole processing step by step so you can see how I achieved this sound. My name is Lenny B, and I help people get a better sound out of their microphone. If you're recording your voice, you're creating content, you want to optimize the sound. It can be done in many ways, but one of them is with processing. That's like plugins like EQ and compression and stuff. And if you've ever been interested in how those things work, that's what I do. And I actually help clients. People send me their raw audio, and I apply my custom processing chains so you can hear what it sounds like with that optimized sound. And then we can get that processing chain on your machine so you can use that updated sound every time you record. Now, you're invited to send me some raw audio, just like the example that we're going to go over today. And I'll explain how you can do that. It's really easy, and there's no cost for you to send me audio and for you to hear an example. So we'll talk about that. You can go to my website, lennyb.com, but I'll walk you through how to do that in a little bit. But we're going to start with this submission. His name is Mike, and he's been kind enough to let us use his voice as an example. And Mike is using a Presonus M7 MK2 microphone. It's really an affordable, it's like under $100 at least at the time of me creating this video. It's what I'm seeing it listed for. It's a cardioid condenser microphone, and it's designed for vocals, podcasts, recording instruments in home studios. And it's a real versatile mic. Now he's using the Rode AI-1 USB-C single-channel audio interface. Now that's used to convert the audio analog signal from the microphone into a digital signal that your computer can understand. One of the things I'm going to show you is how I work with clients. There's really two paths. You send me some raw audio and I diagnose it. I listen to the raw audio capture. And the reason why I want it raw is because so many important things happen between your voice and the microphone before it even gets to any plugins or anything. The room, the gain staging, the way the reflection sounds may be imparting an additional sound onto your recording. All those things really matter the most. That's where you really get a strong foundation to your voice recording sound when you're talking about voice recording and dialogue and things like that. So when you send me a raw audio sample, one of two things happen. Either it's going to be like, wow, this is a good solid foundation. Let me add my processing chain and optimize things, maybe do a little tweaking with the EQ and change the frequencies to balance it out. And here's an optimized sound. That's one path. That happens often. The other thing that happens is there is some issues that I'm hearing in the raw audio capture. So before we do any kind of processing, it's like I listen to the raw audio and I go, hey, wait a minute. We have to fix this gain problem, or we have to fix this noise issue, or there's reflections being picked up and I need to reposition the microphone. There's a lot of configuration and things that can be done before your voice even gets to the recording software. So this is what happened with Mike in this situation. And I want to walk you through kind of what that looks like. We ended up working on 3 different audio files before I even did any processing. And let me show you. The first one was here on the left. This is the first submission that Mike sent me. And there's a couple things right away. When I looked at this, I believe it was peaking right at -6, so he had a good gain stage, but I could tell things are kind of chopped off. Look, it's being limited. There's a ceiling that it's hitting, which really what that does is tell me, hey, there's some type of processing, maybe inadvertently, that's still being put on the audio file. And like I mentioned, for me to really diagnose what's going on, I need a raw file. So I can't really gauge if he's getting a proper recording level, if he's gain staging properly, if I'm seeing it being modified by a limiter. So that was the first alarm to me. But there's something else. Look at this. When I looked at his submission and the frequency spectrum, I noticed something really interesting. So let me play this first submission for you.
This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic.
This stood out to me right away. Look at this in the upper frequencies here. There is a cutoff that I'm not receiving much information after about 10K. The really ultra high frequencies, the air, that high end of his microphone isn't being captured. And that's an issue. Again, it's another reason why I listen or ask for a completely raw audio capture to begin with, because I can see that, are we getting some good footage into the capture device? Is his DAW, is his recording software capturing the full spectrum of footage? Are we getting a good sample of his audio before I could start working on the processing? And I'm not getting a full picture here. So we went back, he sent me another file, a second submission, and we still had a problem. It turns out there were a few things happening in his raw audio capture that he wasn't aware of. So I worked with him and we resolved those issues. We figured out what was limiting his audio and we got those frequencies back after making a modification on his computer. And it wasn't until the third submission that I got from Mike where it was truly a raw file and I confirmed it with the frequencies.
This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic.
Yeah, so this is a truly raw file, and I'm getting all the information here up in the higher register above 10K. We weren't getting this information before. I was able to confirm that this was a good sample, a full spectrum of the audio frequencies. I was getting a good picture, a full picture of his raw audio capture. Before I start doing any type of processing, I want to get a good idea of what the audio sounds like, what the balance of the frequencies are like, and just see what we're up against here. And in this case, I was pointing my ears to the amount of noise that I was hearing. Let's take a listen to the raw file. We'll listen for a few seconds here so you can really get an idea of what his room sounds like and what the equipment sounds like.
This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic. The reason I decided to submit my audio is I've dabbled in voiceovers in the past, think marketing videos, TV, and Spotify commercials, but would like to make it a more viable income stream in the future.
Now that I know that we have the right recording level and we have a truly raw audio capture, I could make sure that the peaks are hitting about -6, and I really get an idea of the sound floor now. So it's relative, right? If his recording level was too low, that would push down the noise floor. If his recording level was too high, there may be some distortion and that noise floor would be higher. So when it's peaking at -6, which is the recording level that I go after and ask for and request, and it's personally the one that I use when I record my voice and produce voice projects, it really gives me a good idea of where that noise level falls. And he's got some noise. Is it horrible? No. And to me, after examining it, I believe it's line noise. And, I would say that is probably one of the most obvious differences between a $100 microphone and maybe a $200, $300, $400 microphone. When you start moving into the mid and upper level tier of quality, one of the things is the self noise, the noise that the microphone makes. Now, in my estimation, I don't know, I don't have this particular PreSonus microphone, but in my estimation, to me, it sounds like noise that could be generated by the electronics from the microphone itself. However, some of that could be coming from his preamp. Some of it could be coming from his room, just the noise that's happening in his room. Is it a deal breaker? No. We can address some of that, and I'll show you how I address it with the some of the plugins. Now, I should explain this before I reach for a noise reduction plugin. Yes, they are useful. Yes, they are effective, but no noise reduction plugin is going to sound better than if there was no noise to begin with. So there's a deal you kind of have to make, Does he have a lower self-noise microphone option? Maybe he doesn't in this case. Maybe he's in a situation where in his room it's as quiet as he can get it. He can't get the fan from his computer or just the HVAC or the street noise. He can't get that removed further. If you've done the best you possibly can and you have a limit to what you can do, then reaching for a noise reduction plugin makes sense. I just want you to know that it's noise reduction plugins and restoration type plugins that optimize the sound are nothing more than band-aids. They're patching the problem. but it's always better to fix the problem in the room. Fix the problem at the source. This way the plugins don't have to do as much work, and it's usually going to give you a much better sound. So I'll walk through what I've done. The first thing I do is I've reached for one of my, I believe it's one of my favorite noise reduction plugins by Waves. They've really done a great job with their clarity line. They have a de-reverb line and a de-noise line. So what I'm going to do is play for you the audio again before and after this clarity noise reduction plugin. And I'm using it at about 30%, 27, 28, 29%. Let's see what it sounds like without it, and then I'll engage it so you can hear the difference.
This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic. This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic.
Here, let me crank it up to about 45 so you can really hear its effectiveness.
This is my raw voice before processing. This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic.
Here's one of the reasons why I'll lean on a plugin like Clarity VX, the denoise plugin. It does a good job of removing that background noise, that white noise in the background, without really modifying the tone of the voiceover. It's working when he's not speaking. It removes that background noise. You know, I don't want you to hear the plugins working. I just want you to hear the voice better. So, you know, it's a little bit of a dance. You don't want to use it too much, but you want to use it enough to get rid of some of that noise. So that's one of the reasons probably why in this situation, I'm using it to reduce the noise. I'm keeping it at about 20, maybe 29, 28%. What I end up doing in a situation like this is I'm gonna lean on the expander gate, which is a kind of a filter, a noise filter. When he's not speaking, it lowers the volume. I'll use that and lean on that more in conjunction with Clarity VX, the denoise plugin, lightly. I'd rather use both of them just gently, and I think that yields me a better sound. And you'll hear the difference the before and after, but the expander gate is something I'm doing further down the process. Let me show you what the changes that the EQ make. I'll keep the noise reduction on, but I'm going to play you the file once again, and then I'll engage the EQ so you can hear the difference of what this curve is doing. There's some low, mid, boxy frequencies that are overabundant. They're louder than the other frequencies, and I'm using the EQ to balance them out. So each frequency spectrum, each frequency space, the ultra low, the low, low mid, the mid, upper mid, and the high, and the ultra high frequencies are being represented more evenly. I'm also using this low pass filter here to take some of that really high end off. Now, you might be saying, well, Lenny, you made such a big deal about making sure you capture that ultra high frequency in the beginning. Remember when I made him submit me a third file and to make sure I'm getting some of that upper information, but now I'm cutting it off. Well, I didn't know that noise was the problem until I examined that clear picture of that original file. I want to see what we're working with. I want to see the whole spectrum. Okay, yes, there's noise there. Now I can address it. But I prefer to address that as needed with how do I put it? I want to use just the right amount. I want to use just the right amount of Band-Aids if I have to use them at all, or patches to fix the problem. Because the ultimate goal here is I want a transparent, authentic, real voice sound. I want people to hear you, not the processing. I don't want it to sound like it's being processed. I want a clear vibe to come through the audio. So this is, how I approach it by doing it this way. All right, let's hear the before and after EQ. First, we'll start without the EQ engaged, and then I'll engage it.
This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic. The reason I decided to submit my audio is I've dabbled in voiceovers in the past. Think marketing videos, TV, and Spotify commercials, but would like to make it a more viable income stream in the future.
Number 6, which is about 347. I think that is the most offending frequency, but even the most offending frequency space, number 6, it's down 4.5 dB. So usually I say if it goes further than like 6 dB, that's when we really need to say, hey, wait, this Band-Aid is too big. We need to go back and figure out what is causing this frequency imbalance in the room to begin with. Are there short reflection sounds that are creating an overabundance boxiness? Usually there's something happening in the room that is causing a problem if I have to use more than 6 dB of EQ in a particular frequency space. That's not happening here. I'm just really massaging the frequencies and using the EQ to balance it out. Let me play it once again. And really the difference is the boxiness is gone. Without the EQ, it's got a low end kind of muddiness, a boxy sound. And with the EQ, that boxiness is gone. Listen to the difference.
This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic. The reason I decided to submit my audio is I've dabbled in voiceovers in the past. Think marketing videos, TV, and Spotify commercials.
So the boxiness isn't horrible to begin with, but it further balances things out once you add that EQ. And once I have a nice palette, a nice foundation of equally represented frequency spaces, that sets me up for the rest of the processing, which is the expander gate and some saturation, a little EQ, a couple compressors if I need to, maybe some limiting. So I'm creating for myself a nice, solid, stable canvas of frequencies that are being represented equally. Now I can build on top of that. And that processing that I do from that point forward is with the Sheps Omni channel. This is just one of the plugins that I choose to use because it has everything I need. If I can't get it done with this, usually there's something else going on in the raw audio capture. But I want to specifically spotlight the gate expander because we did some noise reduction with the Clarity VX from Waves plugin. I put that first. Then I'm going and balancing with the EQ, and then we're using the Sheps Omni channel. And the first thing in line here is the gate expander. And you can see when he's not talking, it's reducing the volume by 12 dB. When he does talk, you'll see these lights go off and it's open. The gate, the expander is not working. The gate is open so his voice can go through, but then when he stops talking, these lights push down the volume. They illustrate, the meter is illustrating that the volume is reduced by about 12 dB. The settings here allow me to do this in a very graceful, natural way, so you don't really hear it working. But the 28.9% of noise reduction that I'm doing here with Clarity and the further gating and expander that I'm using to push it down when he's not talking, an additional 12 dB, together, those combined really give me a pretty good reduction of the noise. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to engage these other things yet so you can hear I'll do that after, but I want you to hear the difference between the Clarity, the EQ, and the Sheps with this gate, and then without it too. I'll actually start without it. I want you to point your ears to the noise difference using these two, the Clarity and the Sheps.
This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic. This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic.
I'll put it in perspective again. Is this amazing? No, you can still hear some of the noise. Can it sound better? Yes, if he were to remove that noise in the room or get a microphone with lower self noise, he could probably get a better sound. Is this usable? Does this make him feel better about his presentation? Does this give him more confidence? Absolutely. Is it an optimization of what we were having before based on the limitations of using this microphone or using the microphone that he sent this submission with and just what he has to deal with? Yes, it's an improvement. And that's really what we're looking for. Really, it can always sound better. There's always things we can do to improve and make it sound better. But this really does offer an optimization and improvement. Now I'm going to add in the preamp, which is adding a little bit of saturation. I've got a soft knee compressor that is reducing 1 to maybe 3 dB, wide open attack, a fairly medium release. We are doing some more EQ. I am raising some of the ultra high frequencies quite a bit, 4 dB here to give him a little sparkle, but I've also cut off some of those ultra high frequencies with the original EQ. We're boosting some mids. We are reducing some more of the boxy tone, but just a couple dB here. What do we got? 1.6 dB. So this is really a sweetening EQ. It's further massaging. It's not doing deep surgical cuts. These are kind of broad, finessing EQ. And then I'm not using any kind of a bump in the lower frequencies. The only thing I'm doing with this de-esser module, I'm not actually doing any de-essing. I'm just using the output to gain stage a little bit. And then we're using a limiter. So what I'm going to do is completely disengage all of the processing. I'll start with it unprocessed and I'll toggle back and forth between the full processing so you can really hear the difference.
This is my raw voice before processing. I'm speaking normally at my natural distance from the mic. The reason I decided to submit my audio is I've dabbled in voiceovers in the past, think marketing videos, TV, and Spotify commercials, but would like to make it a more viable income stream in the future. The type of voice work I feel most connected to are audiobooks. Although I've read countless books to my children over the years, given presentations within my day job, delivered speeches from stages, I believe recording them from the quiet of my home would be deeply rewarding.
I feel that the processing gives a more balanced frequency sound. The dynamics are a little bit more stable, but not that much pressure has been applied. And that's because, in general, his recording is done well. Now that now that we know we're working on a raw file, we've got his gain staging right, and we're listening to all of the frequencies coming into the microphone. It's all being captured. Then we can process and massage and sculpt and mold and sculpture the audio to give him a nice, warm and consistent sound, to make him feel confident. Really, that's the bottom line. What type of situation are you dealing with? How does your raw audio capture stack up? Do you feel like you've got noise? Do you feel like there are frequency imbalances? Are you dealing with a noisy microphone or connection problems, reflection sounds, echoes that are happening in the room? All of those things can be resolved, and usually a lot of it is technique, mic placement, and just the control settings. But so much of that recording procedure can really help you create a better a final voice audio sound before you even start thinking about plugins and processing. So I want to invite you to not be shy and send me your audio. It's absolutely free for me to review it and diagnose it and let you know, hey, your audio is solid, your raw audio capture is doing good, or we can improve these few things. Hey, try this, or let's set up a session to where we walk through your gain staging and let me figure out what issues you might be having in the room. Let's try a few different positions for the microphone in the room. Let's change the room. Let's move some of the acoustic treatment around. Let's get some acoustic treatment. If you don't have it, here's the kind that will work for you. All of those things really have a lot to do with the final voiceover quality sound. If your raw audio capture is solid and stable and it is a good foundation, then we can talk about processing. If you're in that situation, I can put together a custom processed preset sound so you can hear what your voice sounds like in your room on your microphone. And that example for you to hear a sample of what that's like is also absolutely free. Don't be shy. Send me your voice, because here's what happens. No matter what, after you send me a sample of your raw audio, you will have clarity on what needs to change. You will be on your way to improving your presentation, to improving your channel, the content you're creating, or if you're competing, the way you output your product, right? If you're competing, voiceover is your product, and you can make that sound better, feel more confident, and grow your business. LennyB.com is the website. There's a red button at the top of the homepage. If you click on the red button and just follow the simple and easy instructions to send me your voice. I'm Lenny B. Thanks for watching.